Okay, so today we are going to focus again two services from networking, and then we can complete the networking part. So today we'll understand how to configure Azure availability set. Okay, so availability set, we'll note it down here. Azure availability set, where we can maintain the redundancy between servers, and that availability set needs to be used with the Azure load balancer. Okay, so we'll discuss the load balancer which Microsoft is offering. Then we'll understand Azure Bastion services. So again, there is one more service which Microsoft is offering, where we can connect to our infrastructure, Azure infrastructure, without public IP, which is very secure service. And once it is complete, then we'll try to cover Azure Active Directory, Azure AD. We'll understand. Okay, so any question till last session? Any doubt? Any question till related side-to-side VPN, point-to-side VPN? Because we have covered multiple topics, okay, with the multiple scenarios. So till any question, any doubt? Samir, any question? Irfan, any question? Okay, so let's go. Let's start with the Azure availability set. Okay, now we have discussed like how to deploy virtual machine into the Azure infrastructure, right? So this is my Azure infrastructure. So this is Azure East US. Okay, and we have deployed a virtual machine, right? So multiple time we have deployed the virtual machine on Azure platform, right? So this is my virtual machine. Azure virtual machine. So like multiple times we have deployed, and we were selecting here B2S machine, right? B2S. So B2S is a type of virtual machine, and B2S is providing 2 CPU and 4 GB memory. Okay, and default is 127 GB disk. 127 GB disk. So this is the machine. Okay, and top of that machine, like we are deploying some infrastructure, we are deploying some application top of virtual machine. So this is the infrastructure we have. So this is my application. Okay, and my application is running here. So first we need to understand like why Microsoft is offering the availability set and availability zone. So two concepts we will discuss today: availability set and availability zone. So before that, we'll understand why availability is required. Because when you deploy any infrastructure, like let's compare with the on-premises. So when you deploy any server, so your management will ask, what about the uptime? So to achieve the maximum uptime, to achieve the 100% uptime, you need to deploy a cluster. So your service needs to be deployed in a cluster mode into the on-premises data center. So what about Microsoft Azure? So in Microsoft Azure also we can deploy a server in a cluster mode, but again Microsoft is asking to deploy that infrastructure with the availability set or availability zone feature. So availability set is providing the redundancy at hardware level. So when you deploy the virtual machine, let's take an example, you deployed virtual machine. So your virtual machine is getting deployed into the backend infrastructure. This is your physical server. This is your physical server. So that virtual, see in a console, you can see the virtual machine, but in the backend, your virtual machine is getting deployed on a physical server. So let's take an example, your physical server having some issue. So you will get the downtime. So to avoid that downtime, Microsoft is asking to use the availability set feature. And by using the availability set, we can maintain the downtime. So before discussing the availability set, we'll understand the uptime which Microsoft is offering. Okay, so let me go here and Azure virtual machine uptime SLA, which Microsoft is offering, and then you will get the understanding. See, now there are multiple statements here. For all virtual machines that have 2 or more instances deployed across 2 more availability zone. So availability zone we will discuss later. Okay. Availability set again we will discuss later. First we'll understand a single virtual machine instance. What is the uptime which Microsoft is offering? So when you deploy a single virtual machine, for any single virtual machine using a premium SSD disk or ultra disk with all operating system, okay, all operating system disk and data disk, Microsoft is offering 99.9% uptime. What is the SLA? What is the uptime? 99.9% uptime. But when you deploy a single virtual machine with the premium SSD with, or ultra disk, the next statement, when you deploy a single instance, single virtual machine with the normal SSD, which is your standard SSD, your downtime, your uptime is 99.5%. So this is uptime when you use a standard disk, standard SSD. And when you use a standard HDD, which is your normal disk, your uptime will be the 95% only. So as per your requirement, you need to select the disk and you will get the uptime from Microsoft. Okay, so if you select a premium SSD or ultra disk, definitely you will get 99.9% uptime. Standard SSDs 99.5% uptime, and standard HDDs you will get the 95% uptime. So till any question, any doubt? Any question, any doubt?
Standard HDD means you mean to say that would be a low performance
Low
disk.
performance disk, yes, yes. Low performance disk. Okay, so you can
So
use
while selecting this the if you see in the portal, you see a lot of options given by Microsoft,
right.
from CPU to from HDD and everything,
Mm-hmm.
premium, solid state, and all that.
Mm-hmm.
So does Microsoft recommend that, okay, means for what is the purpose of your while selecting this, whether you should go for this? Because let's say if it is a file server, so file server, what it is usually used between 9 to 6 only when the office hours are there.
Right, right,
So, and you don't need it is not a business critical or such type of application
right, right.
where you need a very high performance.
Mm-hmm.
So in that case, but nowadays people, they don't use file server for this thing, VM. They as you have shown that the S3 bucket, like in AWS, or
Yes,
over here blob storage, or
yes,
whatever it is.
yes,
So directly you can access through your blob storage. There is no VM required in between, or a virtual server required in between to connect.
exactly.
Permissions are managed through it. But like
Yes.
any other application which is not business critical or intensive CPU, so you can use a low performance. So my query is that only does Microsoft recommend, okay, you can go with this, or any such.
See, Microsoft is recommending. Yeah, Microsoft is recommending. But before that, what you need to do, you need to take the confirmation from the application team as well, because application team knows what is the behavior of that particular application. So like as you said, like file server, so into the traditional scenario we were using a file server, right? But now in nowadays people are not using the file server. So when you deploy a such type of infrastructure, so before that just we need to check what will be the load you are going to put on that particular blob storage. Okay, and as per that load or data, then we can define or we can select it, like no, I need a premium storage, I need a standard storage. So as per our requirement, okay, we need to select it.
Okay.
Okay, so this is the uptime. So one more point I wanted to highlight, which is very important. So let's go into the diagram. Okay, so as we discussed, right, this is a single virtual machine, and that virtual machine is getting deployed, okay, by portal, and in the backend that machine is getting deployed on a physical server. So this is my Hyper-V host, and top of a Hyper-V host, that machine is getting deployed. Okay, now there are two type of issues we can face into the production. So first type is my physical maintenance, physical server maintenance. Let's take an example. There is an issue with the physical server, and that's why my virtual machine is not powering on, or due to some physical issue, I'm not able to reach my website, I'm not able to reach my application, or I'm not able to reach my virtual machine due to physical issue. And that particular infrastructure is managed by Microsoft. Like as we discussed initially, infrastructure as a service. So there is an issue with the infrastructure, and due to infrastructure issue, we are not able to connect our Windows machine. So this is a first scenario. Okay, just give me one minute. Okay, so into the first scenario, like there's an issue with the physical infrastructure, and that physical infrastructure managed by Microsoft. Okay, but into the second scenario, let's take up example. There is an issue with the application side. So I'm able to reach my Windows machine. My Windows is working fine, but there is an issue with the application. Okay, and that's why I'm not able to reach my application. So in such scenarios, what is the recommendation is? Recommendation is to maintain the multiple instances. Okay, to maintain the multiple instances in a cluster mode, right? So people are using the cluster to maintain the, or to maintain the redundancy here. So this is a Windows cluster, right? So to run the single application, like we are using a two servers, okay, and those servers are getting connected under the load balancer. This is the load balancer. That load balancer is getting connected into the two instances. Server 1, server 2. Okay, so if anything goes wrong with the server 1, automatically all the traffic is getting redirected to the server 2. If anything goes wrong with the server 2, automatically traffic is getting redirected to the server 1. So when you deploy a multiple instances on Azure platform, what Microsoft is asking to use the availability set feature. So what is the benefit of availability set? Microsoft will maintain those instances on different physical server. So if you are not using the availability set feature, what will happen? So might be all two instances are getting deployed on a single hardware, and there is an issue with the single hardware. What will happen? So there is no use of load balancer, there is no use of application level cluster, there is no use of Windows cluster, because in the backend both virtual machines are sitting on a same physical box. So when we define the availability set, Microsoft is taking the responsibility to distribute your virtual machines on different physical hardware in the backend. Okay, because Microsoft is maintaining the multiple hardware. Microsoft having the multiple hardwares in the backend. So when you define the availability set, right? So this is the availability set feature, right? So when you define it, so automatically what Microsoft will do, Microsoft will deploy a second virtual machine into the another box. Okay, so Microsoft will not maintain the all the instances on a single hardware only. Related. So when you deploy a new instance, okay, with the same availability set, that instance is getting deployed on another physical box, and then you are using the load balancer between two instances, server 1 and server 2. Server 2. So from the physical side, from Microsoft side, Microsoft is maintaining the redundancy at a server level. As a user side, as a application side, you are maintaining the redundancy at a application level, at a OS level as well. But availability set feature is very important, where we can segregate the infrastructure on multiple physical hardware in the backend, and that's why we need to use a availability set feature. So there is a one more feature Microsoft is offering, which is availability zone. So availability set Microsoft is offering within the data center. So let's take an example. My complete data center goes down. My East US data center goes down. So availability set will not help us, right, in that scenario, because Microsoft is maintaining the redundancy within the data center. But the next feature is nothing but your availability zone. So Microsoft is maintaining the multiple instances with the multiple data centers as well. If anything goes wrong with the physical data center, your services are getting redirected to other data center. So first we'll discuss availability set, and then we'll go with the availability zone. So under the availability set, Microsoft is maintaining the multiple instances on multiple hardware, okay, to get the maximum uptime. So by using that particular infrastructure, we can achieve the 100% uptime. Okay, at a OS level, at a application level. So any question till, any doubt till? Irfan, any question?
So availability set, you mean to say, is that the physically available data centers connected within the same region?
No. Within a no. Availability. What availability set is giving? When you deploy a multiple instances with the availability set option, your instances are getting segregated with the multiple hardware, multiple physical boxes. So if you aware a VMware feature, because you can compare with the VMware infrastructure. Like into the VMware, we can use the affinity rule, okay, anti-affinity and affinity rule, where we can configure like that virtual machine should not go on that particular ESXi, or that virtual machine should go into that particular ESXi. So we can maintain it, right? Virtual machine versus physical box. With the same way, into the Microsoft Azure, we can maintain like a particular virtual machine should go on a particular physical box only. But we do not have any control to manage it. Microsoft is managing the same thing in the backend.
I got that point. Just a query. Availability set and
Yes.
availability zone.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So availability zone means within the region, within that particular region, right?
Yes. Within the region with the multiple data center.
Within the region, within the data center. And availability set means within that data center only, but on a different hardware.
Yes. Availability set is nothing but within the data center with the multiple hardware. Availability zone is nothing but within the zone with the multiple data centers.
Got it.
Okay. Any question till Sagar? Any question? Swapnil? Samir? Any question?
Yogesh, sorry, a lot of voice is coming.
Till any question? Okay, so let's go into the portal and we'll understand like how we can achieve it. Okay, so what people are using or what is the best practices here? So when you deploy a multiple instances with the availability set, okay, so definitely you're using a single application only. Okay, you are installing the single application on both servers. So in that scenario, then people are using the load balancer, because if you have a multiple instances, okay, with the same application, so how you will segregate the load? Okay, to segregate the load, then you have to deploy a load balancer. Okay, so let me have here one more diagram with the more clarity. So this is Azure infrastructure. Multiple instances. Let's see, I need here 4 instances. Okay, because my application is very critical, and all 4 instances I'm going to create with the availability set feature. So this is the availability set, and this is the load balancer. All the virtual machines are getting connected under the load balancer. Okay, so in the backend, Microsoft having a cluster, okay, cluster of physical box, okay, cluster of the physical server. So that scenario also we will discuss it. Okay. Okay, so your first instance is getting deployed here, second instance is getting deployed here, third instance is getting deployed on other physical box, fourth one will be on other physical cluster. Okay, so like from Microsoft side, Microsoft is maintaining the redundancy. From our side, we are also maintaining the redundancy, and we can achieve the maximum uptime. 100% uptime we can achieve it. Okay, so my website is running here, web server. My web server, my web server here, right? So my end user, my internal user or my public user is hitting on my load balancer. Okay, and load balancer is segregating the load on a required server. Okay, so during the load balancer, we will discuss how it works in the backend. So let's go here. First, we'll deploy the virtual machine. But before deploying the virtual machine, we will deploy the availability set. Because when you deploy the virtual machine, that availability set needs to be attached. So if you ask me, like I have already created the virtual machine in infrastructure, Means I have existing two virtual machine, and those two virtual machine I wanted to connect into the availability set, which is not possible. So during the virtual machine deployment only you need to configure with the availability set feature. Once you deploy the virtual machine, you cannot configure with the availability set feature. Yes, any question till?
So we need to decide this in prior only. We cannot.
Yes, you need to decide during the designing only. But there is a one option we can use it. Okay, there is a one way we can do it. Okay, let's take an example. Let's go into the other diagram and I can explain here. So for example, you are going to deploy one application, okay, on Azure platform. So this is the single virtual machine. Okay, this is the single virtual machine. But currently you do not have a budget to deploy multiple instances, and also management is also not asking the maximum uptime because this is a startup business, right? So what you can do initially only, you can deploy a virtual machine with availability set. Okay, you have created one web server with the availability set. This is my web server. But that web server is created with the availability set option. Okay. And after 1 year, after 6 months, you are planning to enhance your web servers because as per your expectation, you're getting the more hits on the server. So that's why you're planning to deploy a multiple instances. So when you deploy a next instances, you have to select the same availability set option, and then Microsoft will maintain those instances on different physical infrastructure in the backend. Okay, so first virtual machine needs to be created with the availability set option. Okay, and then in future you can extend or increase the same availability set with the multiple instances. So is clear or any question?
Within same data center or different?
No, within the same data center. See, we are talking on availability set.
Okay.
Availability set works within the data center.
Correct,
Availability
yes.
zone, yeah, availability zone works with the multiple data center.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, I thought you are saying that once we configured on as per the availability set, we can migrate into availability zone as well.
No,
So
no,
the,
no,
so
which is not
this
possible. No, no,
this
which
is
is
not possible, no?
yeah, which is not possible. Okay. So I can I wanted to highlight one more point which is very important to do the comparison. So as we discussed, right? So within the data center, my availability set, we need to use it. But let's take an example. You wanted to configure availability zone. So this is your first data center. This is your second data center. And this is your third data center. Okay, so you're maintaining the 3 copies with the multiple data centers, right? So this is the first copy. This is the second server. This is the third server. So like into the last scenario, we have discussed the load balancer. So your load balancer also we can use within the data center only. If you ask me like I have 2 server in 2 different region, can we use the load balancer? No. Your Azure load balancer is supporting with only the within the data center. So if you wanted to balance the load, okay, with the multiple zones, you need to use some different service from Microsoft, which is Azure Traffic Manager. Azure Traffic Manager. So Azure Traffic Manager works at a global level, okay, at a parent level. So we'll discuss that scenario later, but just for the comparison, okay, I'm explaining here. So if you wanted to balance the load with the multiple data centers, then you have to use the traffic manager. If you wanted to balance the load within the data center, then traffic manager needs to be used. Is clear?
Can you pardon us?
Yeah, if you wanted to balance the load within the data center, within the East US. So this is my Azure infrastructure, which is deployed under the East US, right? ये सारा infrastructure हमने East US में deploy किया, right? So you can balance the load with the multiple servers by using the load balancer. But if you ask me, I have one more region. I have one more region, which is my West US. Okay, and West US में भी आपके पास एक server है. Okay, so can we balance the load? No, your load balancer is not able to detect the another virtual machine which is getting created under the other region. So if you wanted to balance the load with the two virtual server, okay, which is from East US, which is from West US, you should have a traffic manager. So traffic manager service we will discuss later. Okay, so any doubt till any doubt, any question till? Okay, so let's go into the portal. And now I'm going to deploy one resource group. So web application. Okay, so during the virtual machine deployment also we can create a availability set or before also. So let's create a availability set first. Okay, so during the availability set creation, we need to understand two terms, which is fault domain and update domain, which is very important. So let's go here, my web server. Okay, under the East US. So we'll understand what is fault domain and what is update domain. So let's go into the diagram first. So this is my Azure data center. Into the data center, like Microsoft having the multiple racks. Okay, and multiple racks having the multiple physical servers. So we'll take the example of a rack server. Okay, so this is the single cluster from the Microsoft as per documentation I'm talking. This is the single cluster. Okay, this is a cluster of your rack. Okay, so let's go into the portal. Now Microsoft is showing two options, right? Fault domain and update domain. So fault domain is nothing but my physical rack. So this is my fault domain 0. So it starts from 0. Okay, fault domain is 0. Fault domain is 1 and fault domain is 2. So first you need to decide the segregation. So do you want to segregate your infrastructure with 3 physical racks, or do you want to segregate your infrastructure with between 2 physical racks? So when you select here 2 means your infrastructure is getting segregated between 2 racks. So when you deploy 4 server, so your first server is getting deployed on first hardware. This is the first server. This is the second server. This is the third server, and this is the fourth server. So what is the benefit you will get here? So your 4 instances are getting segregated on 4 different physical servers between 2 racks. So if anything goes wrong with the complete rack, what will happen? Your infrastructure will run on 2 servers, right? If anything goes wrong with the physical server, your infrastructure will run on 3 your virtual machines. So from Microsoft is maintaining the redundancy, okay, by using a cluster of rack and by using the cluster of the physical server as well. So this is your fault domain and this is your update domain. Update domain. So this is update domain only. So this is update domain. This is update domain. This is your update domain. So fault domain is nothing but physical rack. Update domain is nothing but my physical server. So let's go into the portal. So we can have maximum 3 fault domain as we discussed. It starts from 0, 1, 2, and we can have maximum 20 update domains. Means you can segregate your infrastructure on 20 physical servers. So if you are deploying 100 instances, okay, to run the single application, so your 100 servers are getting segregated on 20 physical boxes in the backend. So because this is a hard limit, this is the soft limit, we can have 100 servers in a single availability set. So if you wanted to deploy a more than 100, then you need to raise a ticket with Microsoft. Microsoft will change that soft limit 100 to as per your requirement. But this is a default behavior, 100 machines. So any question till, any doubt till? Any questions, any doubt? Okay, so let's take an example. I wanted to segregate with 4. Okay, go to next and review and create.
So this is a free service, no?
See, there is no charges for the availability set. This is the option only, right? You are going to create a multiple servers. So when you spin up the multiple servers, anyways, Microsoft is charging on the instance basis, right? Only you are going to do the segregation at a hardware level. That's it.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So availability set object we have created. And now let's go into the virtual machine and deploy the virtual machine. So let's take up example. This is my web server 1. Okay. Under the east. Okay. Let me check where we have created the availability set. Okay, so this is availability set and we have deployed under the East US. So my virtual machine needs to be created under the East US only, East US. Okay. Okay, now Microsoft is asking, do you want to use any availability option? Yes, I wanted to use a availability set. So there are two options, availability zone and availability set. Yes, I wanted to use availability set feature. So when you select availability set, Microsoft is asking to create a availability set, which already we have created. So if you do not have any availability set object, that object can be created during the virtual machine deployment. You can create here, you can click on create new and you can create it. But in our scenario, already we have created. So East US, go to the web app, availability set. See, this is the availability set which we have created. Okay, so if you do not have availability set object, then you can create by using that particular option. But in our scenario, already we have created availability set, and that availability set is nothing but my web server. So let's take an example of operating system as a 2K12 B2S admin 100. Now I'm going to allow here RDP and HTTP because I'm going to deploy here one website. Okay, so that's why I'm going to allow AT as well. Okay, standard SSDs. Networking is a default networking I'm going to use. Okay, go to next, disable, and deploy the first virtual machine. Now, when you compare with our last sessions and today's sessions, now today we have deployed one virtual machine with the availability set feature. Okay, so as we discuss into the theory, like I do not have any budget to deploy multiple virtual machine under the single availability set. Agree. So first virtual machine you can deploy with the availability set, and in future you can add a next virtual machine into the same availability set object. Okay, I will show you how to do it. So this is the first virtual machine.
This is how much charge, Yogesh? 2,971 per hour.
No, 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 no. 2 rupees 99 paisa INR per hour. 2 rupees 99 paisa. Around 3 rupees per hour. Okay. So first virtual machine we have deployed. So let's deploy one more virtual machine. Now second virtual machine we are going to deploy with the same availability set. Okay. So web server 1, web server 2. Go to virtual machine, web app, web server 2 with the same region. And now I'm going to select the same availability set which we have created and which we are using. Okay. Web server, image, Windows 2K12 R2 data center, B2S, admin 100. I'm going to allow here HTTP and RDP. Standard SSD. Same network, I'm going to use it. Let's deploy the virtual machine.
So we have created two virtual machines on the same physical machine, correct?
No. We have created two virtual machine with the same availability set. By using that availability set, Microsoft is segregating two virtual machine on two different hardware on two different rack as well.
Within the same data center, correct?
Yes, within the same data center. Yes. Okay, now we have two virtual machines. Okay, so let's go into the diagram. We'll understand what we are going to do and what we are going to achieve here. So I have two instances, web server 1, web server 2. Web server 2. On both servers, we are going to deploy IIS. So into the industry, like you should have a same website. Okay, you should have same website, and that website data needs to be deployed on a central storage or common storage. So this is a common storage for both servers. Okay, so you are going to keep your website here, website data. Okay, so this is the enterprise scenario we are talking. Okay. Scenario. Okay, and we'll compare with our lab as well. Okay, what we are going to do. So the one more product we are going to deploy, which is Azure Load Balancer. Azure LB. Is getting segregated here. Okay, so your user will hit on load balancer, and via load balancer your request is getting segregated between two servers, and as per the segregation, your server 1, server 2 will retrieve the data from the common storage. Okay, so this is the actual scenario. But in our scenario, what we are going to do now, so currently we are not dealing with the common storage. Okay, so this is server 1, server 2. For the testing purpose, for the load balancer testing purpose, we will deploy two different websites. Web server 1, web server 2. We are going to deploy here IIS. We are going to deploy here IIS. Okay, so is a different website, is a different website. Let's see website 1. Website 1, website 2. Okay, and both servers we are deployed into the availability set. So this is the availability set object we have attached to both virtual machines, and this is the load balancer. Azure LB. So that web server 1 having own storage, web server 2 having own storage. Okay, so we are going to deploy IIS, or we are going to deploy website on C drive only. So this is the C drive. This is the C drive of your server 2. Okay, so we'll get connect here, it will get connect here as well. Okay, so let's go into the server. We'll deploy. Okay, so once we deploy the load balancer, means once we configure the websites, once we configure the load balancer, we will remove the public IPs from the server. I wanted to demonstrate the one more feature which Microsoft is providing by using the load balancer, which is natting. So that natting also I wanted to demonstrate. So let's go into the portal. Now this is web server 2. Let's log in into the web server 2. Deploy the website. See, Microsoft is maintaining the redundancy at a hardware level. Just we need to define the availability set. That's it. With the same way, we need to connect web server 1 as well. Web server. Okay, so this is the web server 2, right? So what we'll do, we'll make the changes into the default web page. So this is my web server 2, right? Web server 2. Let's save. Okay. Now let's go into the another server, which is web server 1. This is web server 1. Okay. Now we can access web server 1 by using the public IP. Right? We can access web 2 by using the public IP. Okay, so configuration part is completed. We can remove the public IP from the both servers. Okay, so both servers are accessible. Okay, both websites are accessible from outside. Okay, so what we'll do, we'll remove the public IP. We'll not keep the public IP here. Go to networking. Let's go here, public IP, and deassociate the public IP. Okay, so from the virtual machine, we have removed the public IP address, and now we have only the local IP address, which is very secured. Okay, so means no one can hit on my server, okay, by using the public IP. So on second server also, with the same thing, we have configured without public IP. Okay, now we'll discuss like how we can take the RDP via load balancer by using the NATing, okay, NATing protocol. Okay, so so this is the infrastructure we have deployed, and now we are going to deploy a load balancer. Go to the load balancer. Okay, now don't compare your on-prem load balancer with the Azure load balancer, because into the on-prem load balancer you can deploy with the multiple policies, but into the Azure load balancer, Microsoft is offering only the single policy, which is a round robin policy. So what is round robin policy? First request, first server, second request, second server, third request, first server. So Microsoft is not offering the multiple policies to balance the load. Okay, when you compare with the third party load balancer like Citrix load balancer or F5 load balancer. So you can have a third party load balancer as well on Microsoft portal. You can deploy the F5, you can deploy the Citrix load balancer as well. It's completely depend on your requirement. It depend on your budget as well. Okay, so let's create a load balancer. This is my resource group name, my web server hyphen load balancer East-US, and now Microsoft is asking the type of load balancer, internal or external, internal or public. So when you deploy a load balancer with the internal option, Microsoft is not going to provide a public IP to that load balancer, which is internal facing only. So let's take an example. You are using your internal applications, right, in your company. So those applications, if you wanted to deploy under the load balancer, you need to deploy with the internal load balancer only. Okay, public load balancer is nothing but which is publicly facing. Microsoft will allow deploy the public IP address on that particular load balancer. Okay, so we are going to deploy infrastructure with the public load balancer. Then SKU. So SKU is nothing but by default, Microsoft is offering here a basic SKU where I have the option to configure the public IP with the dynamic and static. But when you configure the standard, by default, Microsoft is allocating the public IP with the static format. Okay, so let's deploy with the basic one. Microsoft is asking to provide a object name for the public IP. So LB public IP. I don't want to use IPv6. Go to next and create a load balancer. So as per diagram, we have created two machines and we have created the public load balancer. So once it is created, then we will attach both virtual machine under the load balancer. Okay. And then we'll try to hit on my public load balancer, and public load balancer will redirect the traffic, okay, as per the round robin rule. So any question till, any doubt till, question, any doubt?
So this LB will show only the current traffic, or it can show the historic logs as well?
Yeah. It will show the historical traffic as well. But what we need to do for that, Irfan, we need to configure the web space. Okay. So there is a one more service from Microsoft where we can capture all the logs, all the historical logs into that particular service. Because this is a PaaS service, right?
So is any service available from Microsoft as a reverse proxy?
Reverse proxy, yes, into the WAF you can do it. When you deploy the web application firewall, okay, you can use the reverse proxy as well. Okay, so we have deployed a load balancer here. Okay, under the load balancer, Microsoft will provide one public IP here as well. Okay, now first we need to understand the front-end IP configuration. So front-end IP is nothing but it's a public IP or it's a private IP address of that particular load balancer. But in our scenario, my public IP is acting as a front-end IP address. So we can have a multiple public IP on the load balancer. Means a single load balancer you can use for the multiple applications as well. Okay, so let me explain into the diagram. Print. Okay, so let's take up example. This is website 1, or we can say application 1. This is 3 servers we are deployed, okay, in a single availability zone, sorry, availability set. So this is my first application. Let me note it down here. Web server 1, web server 2, web server 3. Okay, so this is my application 1. Okay, so my application 1 is running on 3 instances. Okay, my application 2 is running on 3 instances. My application 3 also running on 3 instances. So this is my app 2. App 2. This is app 3. Okay, so like in which scenario we can have 3 public IPs. Okay, we will discuss. So no need to deploy 3 load balancer. Okay, so you can optimize the cost. Okay, no need to deploy 3 different load balancer. We can have a single load balancer for the multiple applications. But what is the prerequisite? Your all infrastructure needs to be created in a same region. If you ask me, like my load balancer is created under the east to west and my application 2, application 3 is deployed in a west to west, no, we cannot map it. Okay, so this is my load balancer. This is my load balancer. This is my public load balancer. Public load balancer. So is getting connected here. Is getting connected here. Is getting connected here. Okay, so let's take an example. My application 1 team is saying, yes, I wanted to publish my websites. I wanted to publish my application with 80 port. Okay. Application 2 is also saying, yes, I wanted to also publish my infrastructure with 80 port. And application 3 team is also saying, yes, I wanted to deploy my services at a 80 level only, means port 80 only. Okay, so by default we are getting a single public IP, right? So let's go into the portal and let's refresh once and we can check like which IP address we are getting from Microsoft. Go to the load balancer IP. Okay, so still public IP is not allocated from Microsoft. Okay, there is no public IP. We need to wait some time, or we can delete the public IP, or we can recreate, or we can add multiple IPs as well. So let's add it here. So I'm going to create a new one. So I wanted to create for app 1. So we'll deploy 3 public IPs. Okay. Let me try with the static. App 1 PIP. Okay, see, so that public IP we will delete it, which we have created earlier. Okay, now we'll add 2 more public IPs on the load balancer. So for application 1, we are going to use 52.249.186.120. So let's use here app2 static app2 PIP. Let's create a one more public IP. Static. Okay. Now
So just sorry to interrupt you guys. So you mean to say since 3 different applications, so 3 different public IP using the same port 80, right?
yes. Same thing is
So,
because
so
because you cannot map uh, a same public IP with the multiple application for the same port.
so even though if I use a single IP and I have internal multiple IPs, it will not work, right?
No, it will not work because this is the public load balancer we are talking.
But if I have one load balancer and I have multiple applications and I have a public IP, okay, so I'll need multiple public IPs, but I can have a single load balancer,
Yes,
right? So,
yes, right.
got it. Thanks.
Okay, so this is my public IP. So as per diagram, my public IP, and we can purchase the public IP pool as well. Okay, Microsoft is offering the public IP pool as well, so we'll discuss that feature later. Because now when we created 3 public IPs, okay, and those public IPs we are getting from the different range, right? So you can have a public IP pool where you will get the multiple public IP with the same range. Sure. So public IP, we have multiple public IP, but we have only the application 1. Okay, we do not have application 2 and application 3. So what we will do? We will deploy 2 websites. We will deploy 2 applications on a same server, and we will map into the different public IPs. Okay, so let's go into the load balancer and we'll understand the backend pool. So backend pool is nothing but it's a server which we are going to attach under the load balancer. So this is our diagram, right? So backend pool is nothing but my availability set is a backend pool. Virtual machine is a backend pool. Okay, so let's create a backend pool. One backend pool. Network IPv6 and associate to virtual machine. Okay, and add two virtual machines because we have created two virtual machines in a single availability set, right? See, this is my availability set. So both virtual machines we have deployed under the availability set, which is 0.4, 0.5. See, internal communication, okay, is happening via local network only. So my load balancer is communicating with the server by using the local IP address. Okay, let's go into the diagram. So internal communication from load balancer to server and server to load balancer. That communication for the communication Microsoft is using the internal network only, local IP address only. We have added app web server 1, web server 2.
So in here we can add only those virtual machines which are not having public IP, right?
Yes, yes, because earlier Microsoft was supported that feature, but now Microsoft is not supporting that feature. Before adding the virtual machines as a backend pool, that public IP needs to be removed from the virtual machine.
Okay.
Okay, because earlier it was supported, but now it is not supporting. Okay, so backend pool is created with the two virtual machines. So this is the backend pool. Okay, now let's go into the health probe and we'll create a health probe. So health probe is nothing but health probe is checking the health of the my servers. Okay, so let's go here, probe 1. Okay, let's take up example. My application is running on 80 port. So my load balancer is the continuously will check whether the 80 port is accessible or not. If anything goes wrong with the 80 port, so then you will get the warning here, okay, into the logs. So every second, every 5 seconds, okay, it will check the health of my servers in the backend. So if you are using a different port, means your application is running on, let's say, 911 port. So health probe needs to be created on 911 port. Okay, so health probe also we have created. Now let's go into the load balancing rule, which is very important. Now load balancing rule is a combination of front-end IP address, backend pool, and health probe. Just wait, it is updating. Okay. Let me try with the another tab, load balancer. Okay, so let's add load balancing rule here. Rule 1 for app 1. So which IP address you wanted to use? Now we have added 3 public IPs, right? So I wanted to use the first IP address, which is allocated for app 1. So my user will hit on 80 port. My users will hit on 80 port, and my backend port will also 80, because we have configured the application on 80 port. So my load balancer will accept the request on 80 port. Okay, and the same traffic is getting forwarded to that particular application. This is my backend pool where we have added 2 virtual machine. This is the health probe. So session persistence also you can enable it. So if you wanted to use a session persistence, like when you enable the session persistence with client IP and client IP protocol. So let's take an example, you have enable with the client IP. So if your users is hitting on the public load balancer, so load balancer will record the IP source IP address into the load balancer, and that particular request is getting forwarded to a specific server from your availability set. Okay, so like you can use that option to get the more performance into the websites or your web applications. So let's none here, say okay. Okay, so we have created load balancing rule as well now. So we have 3 public IPs, right? So this is my first public IP, and let me try to hit on my first public IP. See, my request is getting forwarded to web server 1. So can you please try to hit from your side 52, 249, 186, 120. Please try to hit on that particular public IP. You should get server 2, you should get server 1 as well. Okay. Please try and let me know the result. So I will also hit on a. So I'm getting the same server. Let me try from other browser. Okay. So just try from your end. Okay. We'll back in 2 minutes. Just try from your end and let me know the result. Which server you are getting. Okay. So which server you are getting?
Web server 2. I'm getting web
I
server.
got server 2.
Okay, okay. So due to load balancer, okay. So due to load balancer, that traffic is getting segregated between server 1 and server 2. Okay, because we are not hitting on a server, we are hitting on a load balancer, and load balancer is dividing the traffic between server 1 and server 2. Okay. Any question till? Okay, now let's take a next scenario. I wanted to log in into the server, but server doesn't have any public IP. So how we can log in? So for that, Microsoft is offering a NATing option. We can configure the NATing. So the same public IP we can use it. See, that public IP we have mapped with the port 80, right? Let's go into the notepad. We'll discuss here. So the public IP we have mapped with the 80 port, right? So now the same public IP we are going to map with the 3389. Okay. So my requirement here is I wanted to use the same public IP for both virtual machine, which is not possible because as we discussed, a single public IP we can map with the 3389. If we map with the 3389, I cannot map a same public IP with the same port with the different IP address, because what is my backend IP address of the server? Let's go into the portal. I have two servers, right? Virtual machine, web server 1 and web server 2. So this is, so my server is listening. My server is listening on 3389. Okay. So if you ask me, can we use a same configuration for other server, which is not possible. So that's why instead of the front end IP as a 3389, we are going to customize it. Any number. Okay, I'm going to take here 5001 and here 5002. Means as a user, my user will hit on that public IP, which is :5001. So that traffic is getting forwarded to first server on 3389 port. Okay, when I use 5002, my traffic is getting forwarded to other server, which is .5. Again, .5 is configured with the 3389. Okay, because my 0.4, 0.5 is not understanding 5001 and 5002. So this is the NATing. Okay, so public IP we are NATing with the private IP address with the customized port. Okay, so let's go into the portal, and there is a next option, which is inbound NAT rule. So NATing rule needs to be configured for only the inbound traffic. Okay, which is coming from the outside. Okay, so let's create a NAT rule. Web server 1, same IP I wanted to use, service custom, or we can take the RDP as well, RDP. So that port I wanted to map with the 5001. Go to the custom option and target will be the virtual machine, web server 1. This is the local IP address, and target port will be the 3389. Okay, means as a user you are going to hit on that public IP with the custom port. That NATing rule will convert your traffic from 5001 to 3389. Any question till or any doubt? Any question?
So Yogesh, in what exact situations would we use this NATing rule? I mean, if we have load balancer and everything working, what all will be the use case where we can apply this?
Use case is nothing but, let's take an example, like you have virtual machine without public IP, right? So also you do not have any communication between your on-prem and your Azure data center. Okay, let's take one more scenario. Okay, let me. So let's take an example. Everything is running here into the on-premises, and you have Azure infrastructure as well. So few services are running here. Okay, few servers are running into the Azure infrastructure as well. Okay, which is under the load balancer. Okay, and this is your physical site. This is your physical data center, and you have few end user as well. Few end user, and those end users are utilizing or consuming your application by using the site-to-site VPN. So there is a link between two infrastructure. Site-to-site VPN. Site-to-site VPN. Okay, so let's take an example. There is an issue with the site-to-site VPN. So how you will troubleshoot the issue, how you will log in into the server, and also your applications are not running from the Microsoft Azure. There is an issue with the same time. Okay, so how you will log into your Windows machine or Linux machine. So in such scenarios, you, for the temporary purpose, you can create a NAT rule, and via NAT rule you can enter into your virtual machine and you can troubleshoot the issue. Is clear, or any question? Any question till Pallavi?
No, Yogesh, it's clear. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now let's go into the portal and let's add it. Okay, so web server 1. So how we can access? This is the public IP colon 5001. Connect. See, I'm able to take the RDP of the virtual machine. Okay, so let's create a one more rule, one more NAT rule, which is web server 2. The same public IP, RDP, then custom port, which is 5002. Then target virtual machine will be the server 2. And network IP will be the local IP will be the 0.5, custom port 3389. Okay, so same public IP we are using with the custom port, which is 5002, and we can take the RDP of the server 2 as well. Colon 5002 and say connect. So this is web server 2. Okay, so with the same way, we can connect to Linux machine as well. Okay, instead of RDP, we can configure the SSH port on 22 port, and we can connect to Linux machine as well. So any question till any doubt related to the availability set and load balancer? Because those two features we need to use with the same time. Okay, if you say like I wanted to use the only the availability set without load balancer, so the load balancer is required, because when you deploy a single application with the multiple servers, then load balancing is required. So any question till any doubt till Irfan, any question? Pallavi, any question till?
No, Yogesh, I'm good.
Okay, so what we'll do, we'll take a break here, 10-minute break, and then we'll continue with the next topic, which is Azure Bastion service. Okay, we'll discuss how we can deploy the Bastion. And again, this is very important service when you design your infrastructure. Okay, and once it is complete, then we'll start with the Azure Active Directory. Okay, so hopefully today and tomorrow we'll complete the Azure Active Directory as well. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So we'll back in 15 minutes. Okay. Okay, so let's start. So now we'll understand the Bastion service. That Bastion service needs to be deployed. Okay, and the Bastion service we can use during the troubleshooting. So let's go here and we'll understand the Bastion service. So this is my on-premises data center, and this is the Azure infrastructure we have. So into Azure infrastructure, multiple VNets we have. So this is my front-end VNet, and this is my back-end VNet. Production, test, and development. Firewall subnet. This is the production subnet. Test subnet. And this is my development subnet. Okay, so the required infrastructure we have deployed under the particular subnet here. Is getting paired with the VNets. Is getting paired with the VNet. Okay, so what Microsoft is asking as a best practice, Microsoft is asking to deploy one Bastion subnet, okay, under the firewall subnet or under the front-end subnet, where you can deploy a Bastion service, and by using the Bastion service, your user can enter into the your backend infrastructure. So again, same scenario I wanted to explain here. Like there is a site-to-site VPN. There is a site-to-site VPN. Let's see, this is my site-to-site VPN. Okay. And there is an issue with the site-to-site VPN, and there is an issue with the firewall as well. Okay. So we have here firewall. Okay. So there is an issue with the firewall. So if an issue with the firewall, like in that scenario, your on-prem infrastructure will not communicate with the Azure premises. So how you will troubleshoot the issue? So also you're not able to reach the firewall by using the SSH or by using the 443 port number or via 80 port. So how you will troubleshoot the issue? So in such scenarios, what Microsoft is asking to deploy a Bastion service, okay, under the front-end subnet, front-end network. And by using the Bastion service, we can connect to our terminal server. So again, when we deploy the Bastion service, no need to deploy a terminal server with the public IP. So the infrastructure is getting deployed with the local IP address. Via Bastion service, we are going to connect the terminal server using the local IP address only. So any question till, any doubt till? Irfan, any question? Samir, any question till?
So Bastion service can be deployed on the existing infra, right?
Yes. It can be deployed with the existing infra, but the Bastion services require a specialized subnet, as we discussed during the firewall or gateway, right? So when we deploy a gateway, when we deploy firewall, we require some specific name of the subnet, right? With the same way, we need to use some specific name, okay, during the subnet creation, and then we can deploy the Bastion service.
So in short, like for the rack server, we use a DRAC IP that way, so that we
Exactly
can
that way. Yes. You can consider it that way as well. Okay. So what we'll do, we'll deploy the network first, and then we'll deploy one virtual machine without public IP. So go to the resource group. 300. So deploy the VNet. So I'm taking the simple range 192.168.0.0/16 subnet C MGMT 192.168.1.0/24. Great.
So Yogesh,
Yes.
a passion is just an alternative bridge to connect.
Yes, yes. It's a bridge between user and Azure infrastructure, which is a very secured bridge, we can say.
Okay.
Like let's take an example, you are not using the Bastion service. So what you will do for a testing purpose, you will add one public IP to the virtual machine. So the moment you add the public IP or attach the public IP to the virtual machine, you're exposing your infrastructure on the internet, which is not secured at all.
Okay.
Okay, because a scenario here is like your firewall is not working, your site-to-site VPN is not working, right? That's why you wanted to enter into the Azure infrastructure to do the troubleshooting.
Okay.
Okay. So go to the subnets and we should have a specialized subnet, which is Azure Bastion subnet. Okay. See, this is the the subnet must be named with the Azure Bastion subnet, A capital, B capital, S capital. So at least your subnet we need to deploy with /27 or bigger. Okay. So at least we should have /27. So this is the name, Azure Bastion subnet. Subnet 192.168 2./24 will work. Okay, now I'm going to deploy virtual machine first without public IP. So again, one more point I wanted to highlight, okay, which already we have discussed. There is no relationship between public IP and internet. If you are deploying the virtual machine without public IP, still you will get the internet on a server. So this is, let's see, this is my TS server, Windows 2K12 R2, B2S, admin 100. Standard SSDs. Networking, I wanted to deploy that machine under the management subnet. Also, we cannot create any service under the Bastion subnet because Azure Bastion subnet is specifically designed for the Azure Bastion service only. So select the management one. Also, I don't want any public IP none. Disable, deploy. So the maximum people are using the service, Azure Bastion service, into the production infrastructure. It is very secure service. Okay. Okay, so virtual machine we have deployed here. Now we are going to deploy Azure Bastion service. So this is the resource group we have, and name is under East US. Network, which is VNet 100, we have deployed, and under the VNet, like we have Azure Bastion subnet, which is required for the Bastion service. This is the public IP. Start the deployment.
Yogesh, I think deployment is
yes. Deployment is completed, and let's go into the virtual machine. So normally we are taking the remote by using a local IP and a public IP, right? So like public IP we do not have on a virtual machine level, and also we do not have any site-to-site VPN connectivity, right, from my infrastructure to the Azure infrastructure. And if we try to take the RDP by using the local IP address, we are not able to connect it because it's a local IP address, right? This is a local IP. So what Microsoft is asking, go to the connect option, and under the connect you will get option as a Bastion service. So under the Bastion service, when you click here, then we can use the Bastion service here, and we need to provide the ID and password of the server, which is admin 100 and password. See, this is the complete secure tunnel, HTTPS tunnel, and by using the HTTPS tunnel, okay, I'm getting my server and I'm getting the console as well. So this is the console of my server, and console, when we use the Bastion service, that console we are going to open into the browser itself. So Microsoft is not using any RDP or any SSH in the backend. Okay, so Microsoft is using purely 443 protocol here. Okay, this is HTTPS, and then we can do the troubleshooting here. We can log in into the server, and we can have the troubleshooting into the Azure infrastructure. So any question till any doubt till any question?
so as per this thing, availability sets and availability zone. So if you go according to the availability sets in the in a data center on a different rack, you will have
Right.
these VMs deployed according to the option selected.
Yes.
So
yes.
also for Bastion, if you see, will this work for the if the server is deployed in other rack or other availability set? Will this Bastion work for that, or we need to deploy another one?
No. See, your Bastion service, we need to deploy VNet wise. So if you have infrastructure into the first VNet, so let's see my terminal server is deployed under the my front end VNet. Okay, this is my TS server, right? So Bastion needs to be installed into that particular network only, into that particular VNet only. So if you ask me, like, can we deploy a Bastion service into the front end network, front end VNet, and can we take the connection of production server or test server or development server? No, because your development server is deployed under production. Your test server, you're deployed under the test subnet here, right? So Bastion needs to be deployed, okay, into the front end only with the terminal server, and via terminal server, then you can take the RDP of your backend infrastructure. Okay.
But if there is a okay, this would be connecting with the production instance, right?
Right.
But if there is a firewall and DMZ zone, in that case,
no. In our scenario, my firewall is not working. Okay, due to I'm going to connect via Bastion service. Okay, the scenario here is my firewall is not into the production due to some issue. Okay, let's take an example. During the firmware upgrade, okay, after upgrading the firmware, I'm not able to connect my firewall, or my firewall is not working. Okay, Azure firewall or any third-party firewall. So in such scenarios, you can connect to your infrastructure and you can troubleshoot the issue. It's clear? Irfan?
Yeah.
Okay. So what we'll do, we'll stop for the day, and tomorrow then we'll start the Azure Active Directory concept. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so for tomorrow's, I will share the one more link, okay, which is updated link for tomorrow. Okay.
Fine. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks a lot. Yeah.
Thanks. Bye.